for April 30th, 2020. And so thanks to Callie for pulling things together. And we had to make an adjustment from last Thursday because the legislature did have a special session moving this money around. We'll talk about it a little bit in detail. And Commissioner Wild, you're on there and you can speak to it as well. So Callie, I think the first item of business that we have on our agenda is for a roll call, correct? How do you want to do that? Are you just have each person?
What I can do, I'll go down the list of names and just have people confirm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So I'll say your name, or if I don't see a name, I'll start your phone number. So just state your name. The meeting's being recorded, so we want to make sure to get that on the recording. So to start, I have a 435 number ending in 22. Okay.
It's Cimbria Patterson.
Cimbria, okay. Okay, and next I have an 801 number ending in 17. Okay. I've got Allison Einerson. Okay, I've got Bjorn Carlson. I have Brad Belknap in here on behalf of Heather Borski. I have Colleen Dick, one of our non-voting members.
I'm here.
Okay, perfect. I have Gina Cornea.
Yep, I'm here. This is Gina.
Perfect. And Hannah Martin.
Yep, I'm here. Thanks.
Okay, Jack Wilbur. Let's see. We've got Jared Waite, who's going to get this up on Facebook Live. Jordan Riley. Kelsey Hall. Kim Bauscher. Linda Gilmore. Commissioner Logan Wild. Michael Richins. Natalie Lutz. Ruby Ward. Representative Handy, and Kate Wheeler. Did I miss anyone on the phone? Okay, we should be good to go then, Representative Handy.
Thanks to all of you and welcome. We'll try to be expeditious as possible and just keep the thing moving. So the first item of business, we ought to have an opportunity to all of us to share how we're getting through this craziness. But the first thing is to approve, review and approve the meeting minutes from the 17th of October. Is that right? That was the last meeting in 2019, right, Kelly?
Yep.
Yeah, that's correct.
Correct. Yeah. Any discussion to the minutes? If not, someone make a motion to approve them in a second, and we'll do that.
This is Gina. I move to accept the minutes.
Thank you. Can we have a second?
I move that, Steve.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. So all in favor of approval of minutes, if you have any, you're all going to say aye, but if you have any problems, unmute and tell us. But all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Sure, we're all good with that. So, the other thing I have on the agenda that Callie has helped us prepare is an announcement that we have Carly Gillespie has had to resign, and we are now accepting applications for an open voting member position. Callie, remind me and all of us, what's the status of the solicitation for applications?
So what they need to do, they'll just go to boards.utah.gov. And if you don't already have an existing account, you'll just create that account. And the application process is fairly simple. One thing to note is that to be considered for a voting position, you do have to upload a resume. So just be sure when you submit your application to upload a resume, and we'll give the process about a week. So next Thursday will be the deadline, and we'll start reviewing applications.
Terrific. Any questions that anyone has about that process and that procedure? Carly has been she's been a real, with us from the start of this and a great participant. and she's moving on to other things. And so we appreciate her work.
Steve, are we looking for a small farmer, or is there any other sort of stipulation?
I don't think there's any kind of a stipulation, Riley. I don't know what it would be. Callie, any guidance on that?
The stipulations are they need to be a direct to consumer producer. So in this case, produce or fruit, produce, vegetables, all of that. But they do need to sell direct to consumer.
Good. That was a great question, Riley. And that was something that I had forgotten as well. So thank you. So we'll try to have those applications will be in. They'll be reviewed, and we will we meet again quarterly, of course, so that our next quarterly meeting we'll get that discussed and approved, right, Callie? So be ready to go there.
Representative Handy, this is Cimbria.
Yeah, hi, Cimbria.
If anyone has any recommendations, I was just hoping that Jack Wilbur would apply for that, because he's leaving the department and he would be on the board and fit that description perfectly.
Yeah, I think so too. So I hope that we can get Jack to apply as he transitions into retirement, and he's a producer, as you know, so he is. Thank you. The next item of business is we're going to turn some time to our new Agriculture Commissioner, Logan Wild, to introduce himself a little bit. And Commissioner, I wonder if this is the time for you to provide. It kind of goes into number 3 there. Talk about the funds that will be flowing to the department from the pandemic federal response funding that the legislature appropriated and moved around. Maybe you could address that too.
Okay, I can address that as well.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah. So I'm Logan Wild. I run sheep and cattle up in Morgan County. I just been here just probably a little less than a month at this point, or not quite. Tomorrow should be the month day that I've been here at the Department of Ag. I was served on the Morgan County Council, and I also was in the legislature as a representative with Steve Handy for 4 years. So I had a great time over there, and I'm looking forward to serving here. There is some funding that's available right now. We're putting together for grants for producers that will be coming out tomorrow is the beginning date. We're still just hustling really hard to get everything out online tomorrow. If you need help with those grants, you can apply up to $40,000. What was in the rules is you have to show an operational loss due to COVID, and then you can apply for these grants that are coming. There was $20 million coming in, and the maximum amount is $40,000 that you can apply for with these grants. We really appreciate the legislature's work on these grants. It was phenomenal that they were able to get that money that goes direct to producers right now. There are some other grants that are out there. They're a little more tied up. Usually they're with the FSA is what we're noticing. I have a call later with Bruce Richards discussing how to get direct food products into food banks and consumers' hands at this point. We're working on that as hard as we can. There are just a few more. It seems like there's a few more rules on that money there. There's some other avenues right now, some emergency loans that are available for producers and operators that are happening for local growers, from local manufacturers. There's some grants or loans that are out there for emergency purposes as well. So that grant opportunity that we were talking about that comes through the legislature, the requirements for that is that you be a food or a fiber producer, or you make sure that you maintain the what do they call it? The commercial lines or the processing into food, make sure that food keeps moving forward, or that you're like transportation is another area that they could come. So it's pretty broad on what it allow for operational expenses right now. So okay, that's
Good.
all I have.
I have a question and maybe just an insight to that, Commissioner, and to all of you. I had a press release this morning that I printed out that I thought might be well to just a couple of highlights. These are the details from the big picture. So from the federal government, the Department of Agriculture announced the creation of the $19 billion coronavirus food assistance program as part of the $23.5 billion funding the agency received in the CARES Act. $16 billion for direct support for ag producers, $9.6 billion of which has been allocated for the livestock industry, $5.1 billion for cattle, $2.9 billion for dairy, and $1.6 billion for hogs. Also included is $3.9 billion for row crop producers, $2.1 billion for specialty crop producers, and $500 million for other crops. Those are just some of the highlights. And Utah, Commissioner, our allocation is 20 million, correct?
Right. That was our allocation for our state.
20 million to the state of Utah. And how was that amount determined?
I'm not quite sure with that. It was, when I started working with the legislative staff up there, it was just 20 million. It was almost like it was a block grant.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Well, thank you. I bet some of you have some questions about this. If anyone has questions, go ahead and chime in. And you said, Commissioner, that on your website that'll be the information by tomorrow, did you say, about how to apply for these grants? Jordan and all of you can, Yeah,
so tomorrow the website goes live tomorrow. We'll start accepting grants on the 1st of May. We'll have a press release as well tonight and tomorrow going out to the general public, explaining where they can go to get the information. We know that there will be a lot of producers that will have questions. We've got our conservation districts, our GIT coordinators, those people that are on the ground across the state will be able to assist you with this grant process. It's not very complicated. Pretty much you sign up, you show your losses, and then you apply. There are some forms, just additional forms like a W-9 that you have to fill out for tax purposes, but those are the things we're working on.
I'm just curious for a question for Bjorn and Jordan. Have your operations been affected? Will you be making application?
I'm sure Bjorn has some inputs. For us, we're so seasonal that I figured that it'll be too difficult for me to show that I have any adverse loss of this in springtime, So, but I also, one other question, and then I think we should hear from Bjorn. If we've applied for the PPP, my understanding is that it would be half. Is that correct?
That's right. That was one of the things that was in the the CARES Act, is that if you apply for assistance and get approved, you get half. It doesn't mean that you got the money. It means that you were approved. Now, if you were denied, that's a different story. You can still get the full amount. But if you were approved, because some people are approved and still have not received their money from the PPP, they would get half.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer that, Jordan? Sounds like it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's good. And if Bjorn's available, I would like to hear how it's affected him so far.
We'd like to hear from you, Bjorn. Is he still there, Kelly?
Yeah, he's there. He's muted. Let me see. He may be driving.
Okay, we will come back to him when he can, when you can see that he can participate again. Any other questions about that? Now we have the commissioner here to explain that to us in depth and detail. Thank you. Well, let's go on to, I don't have really anything else to address in terms of our special session, except that we've just accepting the federal funds, moving things around, did some other things. But that was mainly what that you would, I think, all be interested in, how it related to agriculture. Senator Davis, I don't know where he is, but he had some things to say, but we'll give him a chance another time, or maybe he will still join us. I don't know. We'll move to item number 4, the appropriation request updates from the 2020 legislative session. We had the Utah Produce Incentives, so that was funded, in 2019. That's the double up food bucks, isn't it? Yeah. So Natalie, do you have anything to add to that? She's got a report for us.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So hi everyone. I can give a quick update just where we're at in terms of double up food bucks. We are still moving forward, full steam ahead. We're working really closely with markets, with Reagan Emons, who's the coordinator of the Farmers Market Network. And we've been in really close communication with all of the market managers to just help everybody kind of navigate the challenges and the changes that are going on. We are going to be, starting the Double Up Food Bucks program with trainings and materials and marketing and all of that coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and then that season should start as normal. Obviously, one of the concerns is just markets, first being able to open. We've heard some varying feedback from markets that are kind of negotiating that with their local municipality. So we're hoping that all of those can move forward as planned. Some of them are opening a little bit later, but that's okay. And then we're also just working on, I think the guidelines that were released, can't remember if that was last week or the week before, but those have been really helpful in giving some sort of like tangible document to local health departments and other partners showing that, these are the things that markets are going to do to be safe. And I think right now we are really focusing on getting that messaging out to the public because obviously we want to make sure that people are still visiting markets. So we're going to be focusing a lot on that. If anyone's interested in helping out with making sure that positive messaging around markets opening is getting out in their community, let me know. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm happy to answer more. That was kind of a really broad overview. I'm happy to field any more specific questions about how the program is rolling out right now. We're also working to keep moving forward with our Double Up Food Bucks and grocery program. So obviously grocery stores have been a little crazy recently, and so some of that timeline has been pushed back, but we're still moving forward with Rancho Markets and looking at other stores that we can partner with to get Double Up Food Bucks in grocery. Obviously, we know with the increased unemployment and the increased SNAP enrollment and benefits available, that this is important that we really keep the Double Up Food Bucks program alive as a source of food security for those individuals. So we'll be looking at more solutions to that over the summer as well.
Natalie, I know that some funding flowed from the CARES Act into SNAP. Do you? I would have to do some digging to find out, but maybe someone knows. Gina, do you know, or you follow?
Yes, I do. So a couple of things. There was an increase in the CARES Act for anticipated caseload growth. And I was looking at the numbers that DWS sent me last week, and there has not been an incredible spike in SNAP yet. And that is due most likely to folks who are getting unemployment, because unemployment benefits count as income for SNAP. And so most of those folks who are getting unemployment are likely not eligible for SNAP. Utah did take advantage of a waiver that was available to give all SNAP households the maximum benefit for April and for May. And we are currently working with our congressional delegation to get a 15% boost to the maximum benefit. There's a lot of things at play. I think that as unemployment benefits expire, particularly that $600 boost from the feds, as that expires, we'll see a more of a spike in SNAP enrollment. But for now, it's relatively flat. It has not been a huge spike, and they're still at about 11 days turnaround time on those applications, and they have 30 days. So we turn those cases around really quickly. I do have a question for you, Representative Handy. In future special sessions, do you anticipate, or have you been directed or have any information about potential budget cuts? And that's a concern that I have for the ongoing funding for Double Up Food Bucks, is that it could become a target for a cut.
Thank you, Gina. Yes, it could become a target for a cut. The best that I can understand from the financial folks is that we did pass a resolution for state agencies to kind of be thinking about your budget's going to be the same as the current budget we're in, but that would be an absolute disaster to target any of those funds. So we're going to fight really not let that be any kind of a target. That would be a disaster in this economic situation going forward.
I agree with that. Thank you, Representative.
Disaster. So, have you heard anything, Natalie? Probably not.
No, I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
You probably know more than I do on that front.
I'm just wondering, Allison, if you have any thoughts or insights about farmers markets and SNAP or anything with the things that you're doing, Allison.
Yeah, we're moving forward with our market. We've had great support from the mayor's office, and we're just totally redesigning it. It's going to be much smaller. There's not going to be an art and craft area of any kind, no prepared food. So really just focusing on produce, meat, dairy, baked goods, and stuff like that. So we're completely redesigning how we use the park. So it's pretty challenging. We haven't come up with an alternative to tokens yet. So we're still in conversation and looking at what other markets are doing around the country and talking with Gina and Natalie and Hannah and trying to figure that out. I really don't want to use tokens, but we haven't totally solved that problem. We will have access to our customers for their SNAP benefits and the double up. What that looks like right now, I'm not entirely sure, but we can make it happen. That's all I can say.
That's all I can say. You would anticipate opening when?
June 13th.
Okay, there's the date, June 13th. All right.
Yeah, if we could open tomorrow, I think people would be really excited, especially
I think we would be too.
all of my meat providers.
Want to find a market, yeah, fast.
And also, Representative, Utah's Against Hunger is managing a contract for the Department of Workforce Services for equipment funding for farmers markets who are newly taking benefits. And we've had 5 markets reach out to us about that funding. So I think that there's still a lot of enthusiasm around not only taking SNAP, but also participating in the Double Up Food Bucks program.
Wonderful, thank you. Good deal. Okay, any other discussion on this item? If not, we'll move to well, let's go back now. Bjorn, can you hear us, Bjorn? Jordan had a question for you about your application for your operation for some of these grants. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Before I could hear everything, I couldn't figure out how to unmute this. I apologize.
Oh.
Anyways, as far as me and our business, our online sales have skyrocketed. Our holdup has been, we're doing weekly deliveries, where this time of year normally we're doing every 2 weeks. We switched that to weekly. but our holdup has been processing, of trying to get livestock into the butcher and the meat processing. Generally, they're a week to 2 weeks out, and right now, as of this morning, I booked out the rest of the year. That my current processor, he's booked up until September right now, and so I'm scheduled, like I say, going from this time of year where you can get it in a week or two to I'm scheduled through January right now. So I see that being a bigger and bigger problem as we go on, that several producers are going to run into that. Several meat producers are going to run into that more and more. That those processors are already filled up because people are turning more and more to the local demand and wanting to know where their food comes from. If any good can come out of this pandemic, I would say that our customers are our consumers, I believe, are trying to look at, more of a local product, and that's where us as a council come in, that we need to be able to provide that right now, that they're wanting that. They want to know where their food comes from. They see how volatile the national market is, and how volatile the grocery system is, and if that's where us as a council and producers, we can solve that right now. We need to maximize that opportunity and go from a hardship to a blessing, that bridge that gap right now while the gates open, so to speak.
Bjorn, I think that what you just told us, that might be one of the most important things that we will hear this afternoon in this meeting. And I'm glad that Commissioner Wild, are you still on there? I'm sure you appreciated hearing that too, as a producer yourself, but appreciated hearing that, and you'll take that into account with the things that you're doing.
He had to get on a phone call, but no, that is interesting information from Bjorn, and it'd be interesting to see how if all the smaller processors are in the same issue right now of being so booked up as well.
Yeah, I think that's certainly something that Bjorn shared that I need to know. Go ahead, Colleen.
Representative Handy.
Yeah.
This is Cimbria. I just wanted to ask Bjorn, if he doesn't mind, because we also process meat. Who do you use?
What's that?
Who do you go to? Do you do Springville Meat? I was just curious who you...
We do Springville Meat, but I've reached out to other processors, even as far as Colorado, to try to bridge that gap. And I mean, they're booked up right now. I've called Tires up in Logan. They're booked up until the end of the year right now. I've called Brothers Meats in Craig, Colorado. They're the closest. They're 2 to 3 months out, but everybody that I've talked to and that I'm have a relationship with, they're booked up months in advance, where normally this is their slow season.
Right. We were told July, and then Ashton Meat is booked out in Fillmore as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Colleen.
What we're seeing, our online farmers market actually is accelerating right now. People are utilizing it. One of our vendors, Utah Natural Meat and Milk, I guess that they have a facility to do butchering on site. And I'd really like to encourage the state of Utah to go forward to have more of that. They are selling out of product every week right now. And so if we could have more people that had that capability, that would be such a great advantage. It is what the customers want. And they're willing to go out of their way to get it. And so we need to get this capability, this butchering capability needs to be accelerated. So.
I'm wondering, do Ruby or Kelsey, do you have any questions or insights on this topic? maybe they're trying to unmute. Anyone else want to weigh in here? This is a really, really important topic.
This is Ruby. Kelsey probably has more. She put together a list of resources for farmers markets and other outlets that's on the USU Extension website now.
I can answer a little bit. I've actually had 3 calls from ranchers in Millard County begging me on where they could go to process meat. And I did not have an answer for them. And I gave them some contacts of processing facilities, including Tires up here in Logan. And there's one in Tremont and in a few other places. And they're struggling with the same situation. But I did develop a website that has COVID-19 resources for direct marketing farmers. Most of these resources are not just going to help Utah farmers and ranchers, but it's going to be helping the rest of the Western region. And I continue to update that and provide new information. So I was very excited to hear about your grant program, and I'm going to request for our university marketing staff to post that information when it becomes available. And then we're doing a weekly message or email to our small farms listserv. There's about 300 names on it that Kenda Curtis, one of our USU Extension specialists, is sending out with webinars, resources, website links, opportunities for funding that could help them through COVID-19. So if you have anything that we can use to help disseminate that information, I would be really glad to receive it and help with getting that into the hands of people that need it.
So
go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to let everyone know that if you go to ag.utah.gov, there is a news release about the state has been able to, because of this emergency, allow 10 of our current meat packers that are inspected to be able, that have up to this point can only pack for people who are just using the meat themselves. It was not for commercial. We are now allowing them for a period of time to be able to pack for people who are going to sell commercially. And I was just sent something. Let me see if I can find it. I do have a list for that of the establishments, and this might help people on this call as well as others. Let me read those. It's v.meats, Chuck Meat, Max's Meat, Ungerson Custom Meats, CNS Meat Design, Premium Meat, Snyder Meat Processing, South Sanpete Pack, Water's Edge Meat Processing, and Roosevelt Meat.
Well, thank you, Linda. So that's all at ag.utah.gov, right, Linda?
I don't know that list is there. I just barely pulled it from a text message, but I know that we'll get it on there. We'll have it provided somewhere so people can access that. As long as we've got 4 weeks, we want to keep them busy.
What can we do long term in this situation to try to fix this problem? Because this is an ongoing situation.
You're right, Senator.
And that we are having that discussion as a last agenda item. And so maybe some of the steps that we're taking already will lead us there, but it might be a need for a legislative help, because our meatpacking project was meant to just be something to work on. We'd started that, but I think this current situation requires some additional help. Instead of us having to go out and try to find grants and wait for cycles after cycles, I do think if we've got meatpacking plants that are local and are ready to expand and accommodate this local demand, that we should be able to respond to it, not just in an emergency situation like we're doing now, but more long term.
We probably need long term is to get the meat growers in the state of Utah to start contacting the legislature.
Linda?
Go ahead.
Oh, this is Cimbria Patterson. If I saw the announcement that they were inviting 10 processors, and let me make sure I want to understand this correctly. It's not like a custom plant. Like we have, south of Beaver, we have several custom plants. All your meat comes back stamped not for resale because they're not part of the inspection. So these 10 invites, they're invites, and I don't know the reasons why these plants haven't expanded. I would assume it's because they don't want to deal with the regulation or having office for an inspector or having an inspector walking in and out. But those plants that have been invited, they've been invited because they're already at that standard. They've just opted not to. Is that correct? This doesn't include custom plants.
Cimbri, I can't give you the answer to that. That would be Leanne at our office in animal industry, but I know that those were selected because of various safety factors and their readiness to be able to do this.
Right.
This conversation, I think, should continue, but I have to commend the Department of Agriculture and those that helped put this together so quickly. And I think part of the reason we were able to respond so quickly is because we had already been looking at this specifically to identify which of our existing meat packers had the potential for growth. So the work that has been done was just the tip of the iceberg. And as Bjorn said, that may be one of the
blessings.
Oh, sorry, Linda, you're muted.
Okay, so I'll try again. I'm not quite sure what I didn't. Did I answer?
Just the last couple words.
Okay, I just was appreciative of Bjorn's comment that this might be the silver lining that comes out of the COVID-19, that we're all more aware of the importance of the local food supply and maybe some of the gaps that we are finding now to keep our meats, especially that are typically going to away from Utah to be finished and then go through the system, to be able to shortcut that and have the infrastructure locally, and not just infrastructure. What we've identified is we don't have enough storage capacity. And so that means, when we get animals processed and ready, there needs to be a place to store those before they get distributed to the end user. So we've got a couple of things. I think that's could be tied to the hub program that we had looked at before. But if we want this to happen, we need to go have a much larger coverage than what we had asked for in the past.
Linda,
I want to ask Bjorn. Bjorn, is this discussion helpful for you and your situation?
One concern, and I've been watching this, and I had some questions on which processing plants were available. I've dealt with 3 of those processing plants on that list, and my concern is those processing plants haven't wanted to have an inspection there. And my opinion, if you're dealing with, I say this tactfully, but they haven't wanted to go under inspection because they haven't wanted to meet those guidelines. Now, me as a producer, I feel like I do my best to raise a quality product. I don't want to take that to a mediocre processor, so to speak. And I know I've been through some of these shops that are on that list, and I know things aren't up to par all the time.
Well, isn't that why it's an invite, Bjorn? Isn't that why it's an invite? They would have, I'm assuming, because I was excited about the announcement, but I'm assuming that they're invited and that they would have to, because this discussion isn't just, unlike milk, there's a federal, we are federally regulated, even though we have a state program. The federal government controls and regulates pork, beef, lamb. So that's what I was basically asking Linda.
State or federal. There's 2 different types of inspections on the meat.
Correct.
Currently, the shops on that list are custom exempt.
Yes, that's right.
One of them on there I know is closed, so I'm not sure how they made that list. I mean, on the front door it says closed right on his front door, so I don't know. I'm not sure how that list came
I
about.
would suggest that we do some follow-up because these are really good questions, but I think we might be making some assumptions by not having someone with us today. So that could maybe be an agenda, a future thing, or maybe Callie, maybe you and I could work together with Leanne and get some additional information and provide that to the board member.
Sounds great.
Remember one thing, and
Go ahead, Gene.
the one thing I think we need to remember is the fact that inspection is for the public good. Inspection's not to get the process going. It's really to ensure that people do not get disease. And right now we're dealing with a disease, the coronavirus, and that's not part of the ongoing thing in processing of meat. It's not the coronavirus. And I don't think we should be doing shortcuts that puts the public at risk. And I think that's Bjorn's concern as well.
I agree. Yes.
Well, what a great discussion. Anyone else want to weigh in on this, or should we? Because that gets us, as you said, Linda, to kind of that local, kind of the end of the agenda. But here's what occurs to me. I mean, if we hadn't had the local food advisory council, we wouldn't have had a forum to discuss this, right? I mean, this is the perfect. I think we just got a little validation here.
Well, and it really gives us some place to move into the future.
Yes.
Is to make sure that we get this part of the small agricultural question, local agricultural question answered and addressed.
Exactly.
So that these small growers can have a place at the table, so to speak, to be in the system.
Right.
It's nice to be right about something once in a while. So yay us.
Gina.
I mean, I'm always right about stuff, but
Of course you are. You tell me all the time. Well, okay.
This is Ruby. I was just going to mention that other states are trying to follow Utah's lead. I was contacted by Nevada and some people also in South Dakota that were trying to do this, but they weren't set up the way Utah was to be able to look at this. And so they've actually are trying to contact Utah to get some of our information. So even though it's maybe not where we wish it would be, we know we have long-term meat supply chain problems. We are further ahead than some of our neighboring states.
And Ruby, thank you for connecting us to our neighboring states. That was great. Thank you.
Terrific.
Try to avoid food deserts. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, should we move
Can I
on
ask
to?
a question?
Yeah, please do it. We're good. Hi, Allison. Yeah.
Hi. First, I'd like to say this will be our most successful Eat Local week ever.
Yes. Okay.
I wanted to ask Bjorn a question just about. I've been on the phone with a lot of producers, and I'm just curious about what you think about the farmers market. Are you going to have anything to sell? I mean, I'm not turning down any meat producers, any produce people. So we're going to have a lot of vendors there, but what's your take on that?
No, I think we need to move forward as we have in years past. And, yes, we're setting some inventory aside for the farmers market specifically because we've had those customers for years and I want to continue to take care of them. So we're purposely not selling everything, planning for the markets. Maybe that's not smart. I don't know. But yeah, we value those customers.
Okay, thank you.
I'll become one of your customers.
We appreciate that.
Okay, if we're okay, we can move on to with Kate and the incentivizing local school meals. We've had a couple of months here to reflect and review about our failed effort, and wondering what other thoughts you've had.
Yeah, so just to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page with that, we requested $275,000 for a grant program that would reimburse schools for purchasing local food. The idea is to incentivize them to buy locally and help them still pay market price for that higher quality food that they're buying. We did not get that money. I do think comparing this year to last year, there was more understanding of what we were asking for. I think people saw the value in it and understood what it was. It was a bad year to ask for money. Little did we know what a bad year to ask for money it would be. I think one of the positives that came out of it is that actually USBE started to really see the value in this proposal, and there was some talk from our administrators and maybe even ownership of it for next year. And I have definitely support to ask for this again. And so there had been some conversation about potentially even pulling that funding out of the liquor tax that our programs get, and then if not, possibly either asking for it through ag again or possibly through education. That is all kind of up in the air right now. We're not sure even like what the situation is going to be with the liquor tax going to the meal program, or if that's going to come from another source. And so I am trying really hard to just keep farm to school in the forefront of people's minds. It's a little tricky because I can't now go and pop into people's offices and say, hey, keep this in your discussion when you're talking about something that you don't think is related. But I think that is what we really need to be doing right now is keeping it visible and making sure that that stays part of the conversation whenever we're talking about funding for next year. This isn't something that's nice to have. And the pandemic has honestly really illustrated to me both how much this money and the food hub would have helped our schools right now if they had it. We had quite a few schools, including some of our bigger districts, just because supply chains got all hairy, right? And they have these very specific vegetable subgroups that they have to serve every week, and trying to get that in their grab and go when they're not sure what they're getting has been pretty difficult. And the two things that I hear from our schools, especially if I'm like, oh, you can't find leafy greens, like Top Crops has spinach, and they say, I need something that's processed for us, which a food hub would be great for that, or they say, I can't pay that much money right now because they get their funding based on how many meals they serve. And so that's just kind of this big mystery ball right now too. So they're even less likely right now to want to take that financial risk and go out and buy local food. So yeah, that's something I've really been reflecting on, is that this really, really has illustrated how critical these two pieces would be to building that piece of support into our food system. And like everyone's mentioning, maybe that will be a silver lining, that people start to really value local food more. I have been hoping for the past few years that we could kind of do a tie-in with Local Food Week and Farm to School and get more of our schools to celebrate that way. And I think that might be a good thing to try to work on moving forward, just for that marketing piece, so that this stays in people's minds as we figure out where we can possibly get funding for this, because I still think it will be really valuable to try to scrounge it up from somewhere for next time.
This may be one of those issues that we want to quantify, because if we had it, we could have done what?
Yeah.
If we had to have the money in place, how would this have worked if we had have had it in place? We need to quantify this information so that when we present next year or later on this year to the Ag and Natural Resources, what we could have done if we had have had this in place.
Yeah, I think you're right on, Gene. Absolutely. And I think that we need to, into the fall sometime, put on the agenda at that point, and not and outside of the pressure of the session, but be able to bring these. And Kate, you'll be really a good one to direct, and some case studies. These are real life case studies, and you use the word silver lining. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?
Now, this could have helped agriculture as well as the students.
Yeah,
I think that's what we want to focus on, is the children's food
and nutrition.
Their nutrition.
Yeah, and I think we have some really, really fantastic and honestly heartwarming stories from our school nutrition staff about all the hard work that they've been putting in to get kids fed. And I think if we can pull local into that and pull in some of their stories about how hard it's been, fortunately, we have a lot of data because we're operating on all these federal waivers right now, and they have to apply for all of them, which means we have a bunch of information. So we can really pull, like Davis School District has been having trouble with vegetables. That's a lot of kids. So we can get more concrete data and quotes from people and hopefully put something pretty impactful together.
And Gina, this may be something that you could help us with as well. with more of this input with Utahns Against Hunger, because it all fits in together, I think.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Unless there's any more discussion, let's go ahead to item or C under number 4, the Food Hub startup, some additional thinking about that. Commissioner Pearson, you're still with us. And Linda, I guess you'll have some things to add here too, right?
Oh, sorry. What was I supposed to? We were having a discussion about a grant there, Steve. Sorry about that.
Oh, Commissioner Wild, you're back to us. We moved to, there was a discussion about the Food Hub. It was very interesting in the previous discussion about the necessity of the Food Hub with the meat processing challenges. And so the agenda that Kelly has here, we talked about Kelly speaking of that, and maybe you're going to talk about many thoughts or additions. And Linda, you've been involved in this, of course.
Yeah, so I know the one thing that we've been working on here is making sure that the regulations are in place so that we can allow some of our mobile butchers and our small butchers that are out there to actually sell into a retail spot. You know, how do we get them inspected, make sure that the food's safe, and get those into a retail spot so that the food's going to consumers?
Yeah, I don't know if everyone saw that announcement that we did yesterday with the custom slaughter people to help maybe try to be proactive on allowing more local food, local meat to be butchered and sold to stores. You know, obviously you hear in the news about euthanizing animals and things like that. We're trying to be very proactive on finding every avenue, similar to like a food hub, to allow local food to be bought on every level. So, I mean, I don't know, all of this kind of helps the argument of a food hub a little bit. And I think this will help us in the future, but this is all we could do right now to allow local food to be bought.
But we need to make sure that food is inspected.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's what we announced. So we're allowing our USDA or FDA approved inspectors to go to the custom slaughter and inspect this meat and stamp it with their approval before it's sold, so that it still maintains that high, healthy quality meat
and the integrity of the inspections.
Yeah, exactly. Well, great. Thank you very much. We can leave that item and go in, I think, to the next one. And that is, we were going to talk about, I guess we're on D here, Allison. You and I made a pitch on the Rio Grande, and we came up short, but there were some other discussions going on that I wasn't aware of, and you were aware of those a little bit. Give us a little bit of an update. Of course, then the earthquake came, did some damage to the old Rio Grande, right?
That is correct. DFCM asked for a $100,000 allocation to do a seismic study, ironically, and to do some other work on the Rio Grande Depot. They got that money, so it was sort of a half win because some of the work was going to get done. It was just going to be all kind of worked through DFCM. And then, of course, unfortunately, we had an earthquake. And the damage at first they thought was fairly cosmetic. What I understand now is that there was more structural damage than they originally had thought. And the last I heard from a reasonable source, although it may not be true, is it could be 2 years before anyone is allowed to use that building again. Have you heard anything other than that?
No.
No. So, I mean, they thought it was, was plaster on the walls, and then they realized they had an asbestos issue when the plaster came down. So they had to do remediation, mitigation of that asbestos. And it's not looking great for the winter market at Rio Grande. And I have no idea what this means for the future of the building. I mean, I assume that the state will support repairing it and getting it and doing that upgrade, that they know they need it now.
This
So
really heightens, this probably heightens that whole issue to get that study done, get it in place, and find out what the state needs to do to preserve that building.
yeah, I think that's right. And it obviously puts us in limbo. So I'm going to talk with the RDA a little bit more and see if we want to go revisit the idea of doing a new build public market. But, you know, no one knows what the next year is going to look like in terms of construction. And if you drive around downtown right now, as I'm sure a lot of you have, it's really phenomenal, the major projects that are going up right now that were in process before we started. The tower in front of Harmon's and the Convention Center Hotel, and what was the other big one I just saw? So I don't know. I mean, I think we're going to have to wait and see what the construction industry looks like. We thought we were going to probably be heading into a recession, and now it'll probably be much worse. So I don't know that we're going to have a lot of traction on this for the next year until we figure out where the economy is.
Okay.
Our focus right now is just farmers markets. Just get the food to the people, support the vendors, support the growers, the ranchers, and our small food community. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Downturn in the economy, recession, that really heightens our need to do the farmers market, to strengthen them, to strengthen our local farmers, producers, and get this done. I think, unfortunate for what's happening, I think there's one thing that can help strengthen our hands, and that's a need in the state of Utah to strengthen the small market, to help the food industry in the state of Utah. And of course, we've got to do something until the restaurants get back to where they need to be, so that we can then get back to normal, if you will, as far as the growers and producers go.
Yeah, I'll say one other thing. We did apply for the specialty crop block grant. And the concept behind our application was to create an online farmers market, and to be able to train farmers and users how to do it. And so hopefully that project will move forward, because we are kind of convinced at this point that behaviors are going to permanently change. A lot of people are going to be accessing food and goods of all kinds online. So, you know, we have the best, well, we like to brag that we have the best vendors in the world. So being able to train them to use the system, to upload, to, you know, it's going to be a lot of work on training a lot of people who are not necessarily the most tech savvy group. But we think we can do it with our support, with our infrastructure and our relationships. We think we can do it. So hopefully we'll get that grant. We won't know for a while, but it's a good one. And yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Allison.
I guess I'm just wondering why we can't just come together and support the one that's already here. Anchenda is a Utah Benefit Corporation, and it's live. It's already functioning, and we have 30 some vendors. We're willing to sit down with people and work with the physical farmers markets. We have a place that we can advertise physical markets. So it seems like it's a duplication of effort to me to try to do that separately. Why don't we just work together?
Yeah, what's the reaction to Colleen's comments there?
I think that we need to create a system that works best for our vendors. And so we're going to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can do any better job than we're already doing.
Representative Handy, this is Michael Richens from the Farmers Market Ogden. I just wanted to give a little update on our market. We're looking to open 1 week later than the Salt Lake market, so it'll be June 20th. And we are just working with our city and health department to try and do that. And it's in the process, but I think that we are having a little bit of a harder time than the Salt Lake market may be having, just to get things put in place. But hopefully by this we're ready to go.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck to you. Yeah. Well, let's see, Council. We're now on item. I think we're on item number 5, according to my agenda. We've talked about some of these things. We reviewed legislation, vetting future legislation that might be. I mean, I think that I just say that I think that get through the pandemic and things will become a little clearer. I think we heard some pretty interesting things here a few minutes ago from Linda and Bjorn that we need to kind of crystallize and work through a little bit better. But we can talk about any of that, any ideas, but I think we're maybe a little bit premature on that. I think the 2020 goals, what do we want to have happen? What do we want to have happen? How do we get these? Do we have the right working groups? Do we want to retool the working groups? How do we want to get those going forward? Does everyone know what working group you're a member of?
Good question.
Good question.
So I have a list. This is Callie. I have a list based on some documentation Jack gave me. So I'd be happy to follow up with the members that are on those working groups. I think they definitely need to be updated, but I can at least send what I have. That way people know what they're on and maybe what they want to be on.
Yeah.
Jack, this is Gina. I have a quick question about the status of the local advisory council. Originally, wasn't it set to sunset? Has that changed? I feel like something happened, but I've lost track of what that was.
We set the legislation for 5 years.
Oh, 5 years. Okay.
We're into it about halfway through, aren't we, Gene? About halfway through, and Jack, you know that. Jack?
Yeah, so at the end of 2022 is when you will sunset.
Yeah.
Has there been any discussion, or is there interest, and is that possible to make it permanent?
I think there's always opportunity, but we have to show that we have done something. That means we need to get the food hub going. We need to show that we're active. I think if we're entering into a downturn in the economy, which is predicted, this is where we're going to save local farmers and producers. This is where the savings is going to come in. Also providing the food to constituency that needs this local food. And I think we have an opportunity here in the next little bit, I think, with our strength, but we're going to have to lobby from within to the legislature to let them know, because it sounds like it's just Representative Handy and myself just championing this thing, and nobody else knows anything about it. So we've got to let the rest of the ag community know that this is a vital and important step going forward for the future of agriculture and nutrition in the state of Utah.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to continue to validate ourselves, and we need to continue to show that we have value, and that we are that this coming together and this is making a difference. And it has already, in my mind. And having, frankly, Commissioner Wild now there, who having himself what he does for a living, and having come out of the legislature, he will be able to be a strong advocate. And so we need to help him understand the validity and the value of this food council.
Exactly.
This is Representative Polson, who I've been listening very quietly throughout the meeting. You haven't heard from me much, but from my experience, I think we've done some great work with, as we talked about the food hub, and then I've shared as much as I can about their nutritional programs. Offering local produce to school lunch. I think people are really. I think, especially now, people are going to have a lot more interest in this, because it's just not giving opportunity for local farmers, but as we go through this pandemic and the crisis with the economy, this issue of getting local foods, I think, is going to be more and more important. I think that's a good argument for keeping this group together.
That's well said, Marie. Thank you.
That was good. Hey, it's nice to hear from you, Marie.
Nice to hear. I love your new position, Logan.
Well, thank you very much.
I'd like to suggest on these working groups, Callie, that you provide to all of us, and the chairs can make some assignments if we need to fill in some spots, but that we try to get these working groups as best they can to get a meeting going in the next 30 to 60 days, and to develop some agenda items and start to work on some issues and some items that can then be brought back to the Food Council for our next meeting that will be in
June.
June, thank you.
And so I think what I'll do, just because the working groups are open to the public,
Yeah.
and so that's something you guys can tell everyone. I will put a sign up sheet together and I'll share it in the Facebook link.
Oh,
and
good.
let's just start fresh with the sign up. Anybody can sign up for the groups, and then we'll get together and I'll get those meetings set up.
Sounds great.
Sounds great, yeah. Well, listen, we're at the I think we've exhausted that. We're now, I think, at number 6, the Meat Infrastructure Development Project. Linda, anything more to add to that? We've had a good discussion. Do we have other insights that you want to share, or the commissioners to share on that?
Well, I could do the PowerPoint that I did before, and just for those that weren't a part of that working group meeting, it might be good just to run through those slides. And what I have to add mostly is on the last slide, and that has to do with our efforts at the Department of Agriculture to do some marketing, to really remind the public that we do have a safe and secure food supply, a local food supply, and then they'll be directing people to Utah's own, and we can not only build up that program, but remind people how important it is to shop locally and through our local vendors. So if we have time, Callie, can you pull that up, and I'll just go through those slides quickly so we're all on the same page.
Okay, just pulling it up now. Let me know when you guys see it.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, so this meat infrastructure project, as I said earlier, did start months ago, but again, we thought we had a little more time. And the largest agricultural industry in the state is beef. Red meat in general, we could take care of all of our citizens' needs for red meat in Utah and still have enough to export to other states and other countries. But what this COVID-19 has really brought to our attention is that most of our meat is leaving the state to be processed, and so it's not necessarily available for the people in our state. And so that's something definitely to look forward to as we start crafting.
Hola, esta es Gina. Usted me llame y I missed your call. The Utahns Against Hunger.
Pardon? Oh, I think she was talking to someone else. Callie, if you'll go to the next slide.
Yep.
Okay, and so the feasibility study, the one that we're doing now, we are focusing on the regional, which is on the left side, focusing on the Uinta Basin, those 3 counties, because that is such an important production area for beef in the state. We'll look again at cost, the break-even costs for raising beef, finishing beef, and harvesting the beef. And then we also are looking at the demand along the Wasatch Front and regionally. We have restaurants we hope to get back up, and schools we hope to continue. And then what quantity do we have to have of animals running through a small plant, a $1.2 million plant? We need to check on the feedlot capacity. So as in the past, as we've moved animals out of the state to finish them, we've lost some of those skill sets and that infrastructure. So it isn't just meat packing plants, it's people who know how to work with those animals after they get off the range. And then identify how many cattle producers we have that are currently selling directly. And then this existing packing plant facility, we have ramped some of that data capture up because of the COVID-19. So this is moving forward rather quickly. Go ahead, Callie. Our initial partners were the Utah Farm Bureau, the Department of Agriculture, and SNO and Utah State University. They're still a part of that, but because of the concern about the supply chain, we have also brought in grocery stores. The larger ones are going to meet with us, like Harmon, Smith, and Associated next Tuesday. We have all of our agricultural industry partners. So with turkeys, with eggs, with beef, with pork, and with lamb. So we're getting meeting on a regular basis, either weekly or bi-weekly. And go ahead, Kelly. And so some of the things that obviously we had expected to identify that their gaps are with feedlot capacity. Storage is definitely something that we know is missing, and then distribution. And because of those changes, because of COVID-19, we're definitely focusing more on local distribution and local supply chain. Next one. And then one of the things that came out from this industry leadership meeting that we've been having for the last 6 or 7 weeks is that we need a marketing campaign. We really need to use this opportunity to educate the public on what the supply chain looks like. And we are all very familiar with that direct supply chain and what some of the gaps are. But let me just read some of the conversation that I expect that you'll hear on the radio. So we'll have 15 and 30-second radio spots, and so it'll be on news. Our commissioner's already done one interview with KSL, but the 30-second spot will say this: there are a lot of questions about food safety, such as, how do I know if my food is safe to eat? How can I connect with local farmers and food producers? And why should I support local farmers and food artisans? We have more questions and really good answers, educational answers. So it's not going to be sensational. Sometimes media adds to the anxiety instead of educates and encourages. And so that's what we're doing with this. And so then the announcer will also say, from the fields to your fork and every step along the way, we at Utah's Own assure you that Utah's producers, distributors, and retailers continue to bring safe, fresh, local goods to your table. Utah's Own, bringing confidence to the table. So anyway, we're putting almost $100,000 in this over the next 2 months, and we really do hope to educate the public. And I think this will be a value with all the things that we've discussed today with the local food advisory board.
Great.
That's impressive. Very good. Any questions?
You know, Representative, I really believe that we have an opportunity here, but we've got to put the muscle on the ground, so to speak. We've got to get to the right organization, to the right committees to talk about this. And ag and natural resources, as I've watched the budget over the years, it seems like agriculture continues to be the loser in that organization of funding and listening to what's going on. We need to reach out to the chairs of that committee and get on the agenda with a good length of time to be able to talk about what's going on, and with Utah's Own help, be able to explain what Utah's Own is about, and make sure that when we do that, that we have the media invited to listen to what's going on as well. I mean, it's going to be an opportunity.
Excellent. Yeah.
With that meeting up. And I will meet with you, with the chairs, if you want.
Let's do it. All right, let's do it.
Okay. Thank you.
But I go back to what Kate said here a few agenda items ago, and I hadn't, and this is very obvious. I mean, as bad as the pandemic is, I mean, we've got to make lemonade out of lemons here, because there is a silver lining that gives us an opportunity to really promote, local food distribution channels, availability, quality, safety, all of these things that we understand. But people want I've said, they want local food and they're willing to pay a little bit more for it.
And we've got to give the producers the ability to have the inspections and the marketing tools that they need, the hubs and everything else to get that food to market. Little guys can't do it on their own, and co-ops are not the answer.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Anyone else want to weigh in on anything here? Just speak.
This is Kate again.
Just have a little something to say here for a moment. I've been at this for about 5 years now, trying to be of service to the small, mid-sized farms of the state of Utah. And we wasted about 2 years trying to find grants and whatever to bring forth what we envisioned. And in the last 3 years, we've pretty much bootstrapped it. And it's, I guess, if I'm feeling badly about anything, it's that that I'm feeling a lack of support for the private sector in terms of its ability to bring about solutions. And if we've got government that's picking winners and losers, and if we've got government that's competing with private sector, how does that really work in terms of creating initiative in people who have great ideas and who want to bring forth good things and are willing to sacrifice a great deal personally to bring that about? So it's just a matter, I actually am really surprised that Allison is looking to replace us already when we're just barely getting going here. And I have reached out to her a number of times trying to say, how can we work together? So I don't, I guess I'm sort of letting it all hang out here, but I think that we need to work together on this. I don't think that individually, when we start competing with each other, that honestly brings about the best solution. And it's just like for the last 5 years, I've been talking to local farmers who at the beginning of the time were competing with each other. And I'm just saying, no, your competition is not the guy down the road. It's the big box stores. It's the grocery stores. If we can come together locally and create a wonderful food system locally, then that works out actually better for everyone. We're seeing now how fragile our current system is. It's incredibly fragile, and we're going to have tremendous backdraft from this for years to come, most likely. And so we're going to be looking back at 2020 the same way that we look back at 2008 and 2009. There's going to be people who are basically saying, I know exactly where I was and what was happening in those years because of the economic downturn. We have an opportunity here to come together and to work together. And I would like to invite everyone to do that. Anyway, had my say.
Thank you for that.
Colleen?
I really believe that's one of the reasons that we have set up these subcommittees, is to try to get that synergy going in those subcommittees and the discussion going with ideas and generating those ideas and growing those ideas. It's not to leave anybody out or to bypass any good idea, but it's to find those ideas. And there has to be a partnership, especially when we take a look at the farmers markets, and here in Salt Lake County, for an example, as we grow and along the Wasatch Front where we have populations, to be able to get that synergy, it really does take the help of the local government to try to help us put together the organizations that we need to try to make sure that we have consistency of the farm to where the population is, and that people can reach out and get those things. I think that's what we're trying to do. And I hope that's what the subcommittees are established to create that synergy and this discussion.
Yeah, well said.
Yes, Representative Ham, this is Cimbria. I saw Colleen and watched her, what she offers. And I hope that in working together, we also don't call out other people. I mean, we do need to work together, but we're in a free market. And I think that all of us and some of us have individual things to offer. And the Salt Lake market is an established market, and it's running and it's going just like the Cedar market or the St. George market. There's a lot, there's someone who's trying to build a co-op in Salt Lake, there's lots of opportunities out there, and they all have a place, and everyone can, vie for that position to get those farmers on board. And, one model isn't right for everybody. Some farmers don't go to markets at all. Others sell from their store. Some of them have a stand. I think, it's just, I don't think I hope we don't all end up just being one thing in one place. And I think that's exactly what they're talking about with these processors for meat. We need more diversity. We need more channels, more opportunities, not funneling it into one place or everybody going one place.
Thank you, Cimbria. Anyone else?
I would just clarify, the 29-year-old downtown farmers market is run by a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And so our mission is really to educate people about the importance of local food. It always has been. And that whatever we build in the online sphere will be a specific reflection of what the downtown farmers market is and looks like, and about the programs we do, about our children's nutrition programs, about our SNAP and Double Up, about all of the things we do, food preservation. So we're really looking at building something specific. It's not about competition. We're not competing with you. We are building a structure that supports the work we do and the vendors that we have. And so I'll just like to clarify that. I think also just would like to do a little tiny bit of self-promotion, as we are a 501c3, losing probably about more than $100,000 in revenue by cutting out our art and craft market, by cutting out our prepared food. So we are doing a fundraiser. So if any of you have an extra $5 to kick to the farmers market, go to slcfarmersmarket.org. It's going to cost us a lot to put these COVID-19 operational requirements in place. It's going to be a learning curve. So yeah, share it with your friends.
Yeah, that's terrific. So saltlakefarmersmarket.org, and there's a fundraising, or there's a donation option there, Allison.
That's right. There's a donate button. It's slcfarmersmarket.org. Harmons has given us a challenge grant, so they're going to double all donations for the next week up to $10,000. Harmons has been an amazing partner with us for a really long time, so you can double your money right now thanks to the great people of Harmons.
So this is Representative Polson. I'm just asking those of you that are in charge of the opening up these farmers markets, what will be the procedures as you open up? So I can tell our friends and neighbors to come. You're not having arts and crafts or prepared foods, but what will be the procedure as people come, as far as social distancing, wearing masks, etc.? Have you worked that out? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we are finalizing our protocols, and those will include all vendors wearing masks and gloves, all vendors having touchless payment options. We are discouraging the use of cash, but we know we don't want to eliminate that portion of the population that doesn't have a smartphone. We are one way only. So if you think about the farmers market, you would walk up and down 3rd South and get all your produce. There will be no vendors on the street side. So we'll just be all internal and everybody facing out. So it'll be easy to do the one-way thing. It'll be really difficult. It provides a lot of space for social distancing if there's a line, because you can back out as far as you want to into the 10-foot park. We'll have hand washing stations and hand sanitizers at every entry point and at other points around the market. We are not allowing pets. That's really going to freak some people out. We are discouraging people from bringing their children, which, you know, so much of our messaging we're just having to do a 180 on, but one person per household coming to shop and get the things they need and then going home to enjoy them. We're not discouraging or disallowing reusable bags, but you will have to hold your bag while the vendor puts the things that you're buying into, you know, they'll hand it to you, you put it in your bag. And then we'll have some other options for people who don't bring their reusables.
Is that the
leaving
standard?
something out?
Excuse me, Allison. Is that the standard for all of the farmers markets throughout Utah?
The Department of Ag put out a
list.
list. Sorry, the Department of Ag put out a list of guidelines, recommended guidelines. It's very comprehensive. I've been talking with Linda a lot about this and with the other market managers. We're following the protocols that have been put in place in places like New York City, where their markets have been operating throughout the pandemic as an essential food service. So they've had weeks to get their systems down. So we're thankfully don't have to reinvent the wheel. And we're looking, you know, we're seeing what's working and what's not working. And we feel confident that by June 13th, we will have an amazing resource for local food that's safe for vendors and safe for patrons. It won't be as much fun. It'll be sad, but we're going to get the food to the people.
And maybe this is Kelsey adding on to Allison's comment. I worked with Reagan Emmons and Linda Gilmore on developing a webinar that we're hosting next Wednesday for the farmers market managers and our network around the state. And we've also invited vendors and direct marketing farmers to that webinar. And it's to help them understand those regulations that have been put in place by the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food, and allow an opportunity to ask questions and to communicate with each other as a network. And then Reagan and I have been handling emails and calls from managers and vendors around the state asking about procedures and ways that they can continue operating their market during COVID-19. And so a lot of that information is available on our website with UHU extension, and we'll continue to add to that. And we've added the Utah Department of Ag and Foods regulations as a resource to publicize.
Good. Well, that's good.
Wonderful. The better the public knows, the less disappointment when they go.
Yeah.
And
right.
that is the
Look
approach.
forward to aggravation.
And that is the approach Utah State University took with extension and letting consumer information as well as direct marketing farmers information so that they understand the rationale for these regulations and what can we be doing to communicate. And I've been working with our marketing personnel to see what we can put out on our social media about it to help communicate that, since we've put out those regulations as a resource.
We'll be doing a tremendous amount of public outreach as well across all of our social channels to get all of these new weird rules communicated to the patrons. It's not going to be easy, and we're going to have to turn people away that walk up with their dog, and we're prepared to do that. We're going to do whatever we need to do to be safe and make people feel comfortable, and the education piece is going to be the most important piece.
The festival piece is gone. That's the sad part.
It's gone for this year, for sure. Yeah. And it's really heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for the art and craft community who rely on the market for, a large majority of their income. But it's necessary, and we know that, and everyone has been really understanding. And so we have an amazing food community. They've rallied around us, and I'm truly grateful.
Thank you.
Well, just right. I think that brings us to the end of the agenda. We'll just ask if anyone has anything else to discuss that we haven't discussed. This is your opportunity.
And our next meeting will be, excuse me, you had something?
Yeah, I was just going to say one quick thing, which is that I've just been thinking about, as we keep talking about all these great ways to take advantage of this new interest in local food.
Yeah.
We keep thinking about ways to use that to build equity into our food system, and that we're not using this to create sort of a bigger divide between people who can afford local and creating kind of that class cultural divide between, you know, people who even especially honestly like grow food and work in food service and can't afford to buy local. And so I think those, you know, programs that address that, like Double Up or like our schools programs, and if we keep thinking about more innovative ways to address that and take advantage of that, that interest, that'll be more helpful than just taking advantage of the interest in local food.
Yeah, I think, Kate, you've articulated a broader and better and bigger vision that we all should be thinking about. So thank you. You did it. Yeah, that was very nice. Well, the next meeting, Callie will let us know. But Callie, let's turn the time to you. Give us a time for the next meeting in June. Be the third.
Yes, it's June 18th.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we will we'll let everybody know. Likely it will also be a video conference like this. So we also just attached to the public notice website, we just attached a little reminder that if there are any of you that during that time want to suggest an agenda item, there's a little process there just to send me an email or to work through a voting member to get that topic discussed. And I keep in contact with Senator Davis and Representative Handy with those topics. So just feel free to email me.
Right. Thank you for great organization here, Kelly. Senator Davis, anything to conclude with, to add for you and me?
I'm just looking forward to where we're going to be in June. I'm hoping above all hope that we're going to be able, maybe by the fall, to be able to meet with social distancing and maybe a mask at AG. That's what I'm hoping.
It'd be great if
maybe with some fresh peaches or some fresh apricots. Maybe some fresh steak. I don't know.
I wasn't able to get the video on this, so I'm missing seeing your faces, but it's so nice to hear all of your voices.
Yeah.
Again.
Is this the format we want? Is this Google, or do we want to do Zoom, or do we want to do the one that we use for our special session? That worked very, very well. That was using the UEN network to be able to do that.
We'll let Callie think about that and kind of work her way through that. But she's comfortable with Google Hangouts. The second time we've done this, it seems to work. But
okay, we can do it this way if you're comfortable doing it. Then. Yeah. I was late because I was trying to figure out how to get onto the meet.
Yeah, that happens for all of us.
I am technically challenged. I will say that
for all of us. And
Me too.
So, Callie, thank you very much, and to all of you. And if all of you, if you have additional thoughts that we haven't covered, or you have a thought, later this afternoon or tomorrow or tonight, send those along to Callie or to Senator Davis or myself, and let's put those in the hopper. But I think the action item is that Callie's going to help get these, see if we can get these working groups going. And get some momentum going for those working groups, correct?
Yep, I'll send that out in an email, and it'll also include the statewide community food assessment. I'll put that on there as well. That's not a working group, it's a project, but I'll put that in for you to sign up for as well.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for jumping on today, and hope you're here in June. Let's keep it going.
Let's keep it going. Well, all right. Let's conclude. We'll
make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
A motion to adjourn. All in favor, vote aye, and we will see you later. Take good care of yourself. Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Yes,